Hey, true believers. Chris Mack coming at you with Swamp Thing issue 37. And before we dive into it, this is another one of those comics that I got to give you a cautionary tale on. So, I initially, when I got this book, it was a hand me down from my mom when I was a kid. And, I kind of put it in my collection, didn't think anything about it. And then I kind of found out that it was the first appearance of John Constantine. And I was like, well, that's cool. And I didn't at the time really know who Constantine was. I was just like, oh, first appearance, whatever. And needless to say, as the years passed, my mom told me, she goes, if you're worried about your collection getting too big, trade off ones that you don't read anymore. Well, being ignorant, I traded this one off, which the book that, whoever, the person that it went to, I know it went to a safe home. But then years later, my mom passed. Yeah, that I just felt absolutely devastated. So I had to at least get this one back in my collection because this was one of the first ones, as I said, that my mom gave me. So not so much because the Constantine appearance, which is awesome, but no, more for sentimental. So I'm not happy with the price that I had to do. But this is why whenever I talk to you guys and you're talking about selling your collection, I say make sure that you're 100% sure that this is something you want to get rid of. Because if not, you are going to kick yourself. And a lot of the times it's going to be pricey if you want to get it back. So cautionary tale there. Now, with that said, let's dive into this excellent freaking comic book. The print date on it was June 1985. And the creators, the creators were Alan Moore, writer, Rick Veitch, and John Totleben, artist, Karen Berger, editor, Tatiana Wood, colorist, and John Costanza was the letterer. And then I love the way that they give the homage to the creators where it says Swamp Thing, originally bottled by Wine and Wrightson. That is awesome. And the continuing, what's that word called when things are continuing? I don't know, not enough coffee today, but you'll keep continuing to see this beer can throughout the book, so pay attention to that. This is Growth Pains, and we are working basically following this girl. God, what is her name? Hold on a second. Can't remember her name off the top of my head. Abby, that's her name. Abby Holland. So this is essentially I believe, not bride, not wife. What's it called when you're getting married? Fiance. There it is. Because here she's talking to her friend Tim, and he goes, "I know what with your husband's accident and all, it's been pretty tough. Well, let me know if we can help or anything." And she's like, "It's okay, Tim. I'm just, I'm just not a bit myself right now." So kind of learn that something's up with Alec. But before we even get into that, we dive over into London, I think it is, and here's our first shot at John. And he's part of this group. What are they called? It's a magician or like a wizard's trio or quad. I think it's 4 people or something like that. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. Now, before we get into that, though, what's interesting about John here is, from what I understand, is I guess Alan Moore initially asked his artists who they wanted to draw most. And you gotta remember, this is around the 80s. And I guess they said that they wanted to draw a character that was based off of Sting. And so Moore kind of created this idea of this character based solely on Sting and made him a quote unquote street working magician. Now, for me, it's not as an effeminate, but to a degree, my personal take on him is John reminds me of a mixture between David Bowie and Billy Idol. That's just me, but I can see the Sting influence, especially as you look at the early pages before they kind of took his own shape. So it's just some interesting take for you guys. But what happened is John's visiting all his friends that don't really care for him because John is an asshole. And they're saying that something is coming back. And while this is happening, you see that all these days keep happening and that something keeps growing. And I love how it says, "I am. But where am I? What am I? The soil about me, rich and wet, half swallowing me. I recognize its texture. I am in the swamp. I am the swamp thing. How strange. I thought that I was dead." So this is one of the first times that Alec learns that he can regenerate himself, because here, he was still early on in his time as Swamp Thing. Abby's goes out to see if she can find him. She goes, "Are you around here someplace? I keep getting feelings like you're somewhere near me. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just imagining." And that's when she sees the plant. And it's just interesting to see her connection to Alec. And then, of course, John's connection here as we get into it. And as he goes and visits all of his teammates, they all talk about having nightmares. And this guy, he's something else. They're talking about the rise of Cthulhu. And yeah, just the way he talks about it. You can tell he's one of those savants as he kind of is awkward, but he knows his stuff. And yeah, it's very cryptic in his talk. And then we cut back to, as we're talking about the end of the world, we see that Abby's starting to water Swamp Thing. And this is another thing that I remember reading. I don't remember where, but Moore was talking about how when he took over Swamp Thing, he wanted to basically make it a eco friendly book, kind of giving people aware of the environment. And so he says, "Beads of water burst against my skin like large and delicate balloons. She should water the soil and not me. If the droplets magnify the sunlight, I shall burn. Still, she is gentle and loving, turning me over in her hands, perhaps checking for insects. Insecticide. It stings. I wish that I could tell her not to use it. If my eyes had been formed, she might have damaged them. Perhaps I should concentrate on developing vocal apparatuses so that I can tell her where she's going wrong." So it's just kind of an interesting take on what happens when you're actually watering a plant. So it's like, is that what they're really thinking? And you can kind of see again, as we were just talking about how, Moore's take on watching over the environment. And I mean, look at the artwork as we're going through this. I mean, these are almost like, to me, could be gallery level artwork. And we just don't get that anymore. And then here, just the rapport that they have between each other, where Swamp Thing is able to finally talk. He goes, "No more sprays. Stings. Oh, well, pardon me. How about thanks for all the water?" So you can see that they care about each other. And then here again, another one of Constantine's members, and he's going to talk about how he just had an awkward conversation with the last one. And she goes, "It's not Cthulhu. It's Satan, Mr. Constantine. The name of our adversary is Satan. And he's coming back." And again, just look at the artwork. Unsettling. And it just really adds to the whole book. Because again, where you're kind of getting these gentle moments with Alec and Abby. And you can see how they love one another. But as Alec visits his last friend here, you see that she's drawing this character, this boy with the backwards head. And there's something gnawing at her. So you can kind of see this change in the environment here. The same with Alec as he starts to become more grown. He's starting to say that, I'm learning so much about what I am. And the knowledge is gradually changing me. What am I becoming? I bide my time in this place until I am grown. And I consider this organism that I am. Sometimes I am in awe at its strangeness and complexity. Sometimes I'm almost frightened by my own possibilities. Oh, this whole talk here as he starts to become fully formed and seeing that he's actually able to regenerate himself, the things he's able to do, it's very harrowing. And again, this is just one of those psychedelic, gorgeous pieces that, again, you would see in a gallery. That just kind of caught my attention immediately. So what eventually happens is after Alec talks to all his members, or not Alec, what's his name, John, he's told to go visit the elemental. And you can tell right off the bat, their first meeting, that Swamp Thing and John hate each other. And like how he's like, who? I said I'd tell the people your Mrs. works for about her sleeping arrangements. I'm a nasty piece of work, Chief. Ask anybody. You dare threaten her? That's right. And since for the next 4 days you're going to be about as dangerous as a turnip, there's not much you can do about it. And here, so John talks about kind of doing favors. He's like, I know what you are, mate, and you don't. And he actually kind of gives Alec a little hint of how when you go back into the soil, when you quote unquote die, you could basically respawn anywhere. And he's like, why would that be important to me? Teleportation, mate. You could go anywhere in the world. And he says, geez, you're stupid for one of the last plant elements. And so Alec is actually like, even though he hates John, he's kind of realizing that he's at his mercy. So while that's happening, remember the character with the backwards head that John's friend was drawing? Yeah, madness ensues almost immediately as the book ends. And when you're thinking that that's the crescendo, Alec has to take into consideration what he's talked about with John. And Abby realizes that their relationship is going to be suffering something fierce for this. So guys, oh my God. This book, I was not ready for how intense of a read this was going to be. And I'm glad that I got it back because, damn, it just, from the beginning, you know, they caught John Constantine's character really spot on. The relationship between him and Alec Holland, just absolutely phenomenal, everyone. So if you guys have enjoyed what you've seen, please first and foremost support your local comic shop and see if hopefully you can find a copy that's not going to tear your wallet apart. Or sometimes, you know, your comic shop may be like mine where you can do a layaway. They'll ask for like 20-30% down. You can make payments on it. Sometimes helps with some of these bigger books, if you know what I mean. So with that said, if you guys have enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate it if you take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Helps the club channel more than you could possibly know. And if you don't mind hitting that fancy little green bell next to subscribe, that way as we continue to upload content, you guys get notified. Come to the channel, and we love talking with you all and hearing your thoughts and feedback down in the comments below or our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, thank you so much for stopping by. Hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.